Spring season is here, and it is very tempting to go fly into some grass strips and into the backcountry. This kind of flying is a lot of fun, but we need to be aware that there are some risks involved. Grass is more forgiving than pavement, but when you start going to grass strips, it's a new world, opens a new and big variety of places to go. So there are lots of hidden dangers that we need to be aware of. In this video I'm going to talk about some of the dangers and tricks I've seen through many years in flying to backcountry strips and grass strips. The other day I was in Spanaflight Flight School and shop. They were putting the new ugly Dodge seats in my Cessna 170, and I was talking to an instructor and he was telling me that he has never landed on grass. And I told him that grass is more forgiving than pavement. It's a controlled airport, you have windsock, you have an approach, you know the surface. It can still be icy or wet, but you can see that from the distance and avoid it. Most paved runways usually have an easy approach or a decent approach, and on grass strips or backcountry strips sometimes there are tall trees or you have to do a dog leg to land, and it gets a lot more tricky. Here I'm flying with Thomas and we are landing at Tobias Bolaños Airport in Costa Rica. Big long runway. The only trick here is that it has a ravine that have downdraft when it's windy. In Washington State, we have an airport that is a backcountry strip, but it is paved. It is Ranger Creek. It's in the middle of the valley. Has a nice approach, tall trees. This airport can get tricky when it's hot for density altitude. Even if it's not so high, but it can get hot and you have tall trees. So you have to go over those trees. If you have an airplane that has not much power, it can become a problem. Also, when it's some wind, you can get some downdrafts. Sorry for this view, the camera was a little high on my head, but that shows you the pilot's perspective. On this approach, I am coming to land from the south. And if you want to go around, you can go around, but look at this terrain. Imagine coming to land from the north and then there's an obstacle, an animal comes in to the runway, and then you have to go around towards the south in an underpowered airplane. Things can get complicated because you have rising terrain. You will have to do a 180 because you will not be able to outclimb the terrain. You see here, pretty soon we will hit a downdraft. Right there, I learned my lesson. No need to come that low, because there's plenty of runway left. So from now on, I always come a lot higher, aim for the first 200 yards, and still there is a lot of runway left. That way, I avoid the downdraft and being too low over the trees on approach. We always learn. So as you can see, paved runway, you can still have a challenge. Now let's go to the grass strips. For example, this one is in the jungle. It's not too short, but approaching the strip was between trees and very tall trees. So I only do this one when there is no wind. Wet and muddy airstrips. This is when it gets challenging and more tricky. Look at the size of the tires of this Cessna 172 XP. They're not the smaller ones, but they're not big either. Especially the front one is the stock 5x6. Very wet grass, some mud, and Cessna 172 XP works to get off the ground. For this type of conditions, big tires make a big difference. I also came here in my Cessna 182. It was wet. It was also muddy and soft. My front tire was the stock one, the 5-inch tire, so it got stuck. Luckily the propeller didn't hit the ground, so there was no problem. We had to pull it between 5 of us and we took it out. But this is some of the dangers of wet grass strips. This airstrip is in a Mowbray, in the Atlantic coast of Costa Rica, near the border of Panama. And I'm the only pilot who flies here, and when I landed the first time, one of the guys from the town told me that I was the first airplane to land there in 15 years. This airstrip is not wet but very bouncy, and with stock tires it might be a problem because you can hit the propeller in one of those holes. This is Grover Field in Washington. You have to get the mentality of no go around when you start to do this kind of flying. Absolutely no go around on this airstrip. I have been in a situation when it's a strip similar like this and I could not go around, and I had to go around, but at the end I didn't go around. I ended up like 1 foot from the fence.
Just holding off the ground, and give a little power even.
Here is the opposite situation. If you need to go around, you have to do it at the right moment. Some of these strips are shorter and with tall trees. In this case, pilot made the right decision and he did a go around. My Cessna 170 has 31-inch Alaska bush tires. They do make a big difference for landing in wet and muddy conditions. Still, there's no warranty, so you have to always be on the lookout and be careful. These tires have zero braking power in wet ground. This is Lord Flat in Idaho. It's a grass strip, but underneath it was like dry mud. It's one of the roughest airstrips I ever landed at. You can see in the video how much this airplane vibrates. Here is another view of that same landing. I would have hated to come here on an airplane with stock smaller tires. The airplane would have suffered a lot. On this landing, the airplane vibrated so much and shook so much that the compass of my airplane broke. So this shows you that even if it's dry, conditions are dry, but still it's a pretty rough airstrip. This one is kind of tricky because it is impossible to see it from the air. So after talking to Joe, the instructor at the Spanaflight, I realized and completely agree that as a flight school, it's not a good idea to rent for grass or take airplanes to grass strips because the insurance rate will get super expensive. And definitely there is more risk involved. Still, landing on grass, on nice, smooth grass strips, is more forgiving than pavement. But when you start going to grass strips, there is always the unknown if it's wet, rough, or there is holes, where on pavement you always see it. So I offered Joe to take him to grass strips, mountain strips, and some gravel bars in my Cessna 170. I already told him that going in my 170 with the big Alaska 31-inch tires will make every surface feel smooth, but it should be a lot of fun. And we plan of making a video of this trip. This Spanaflight Flight School is located in Pierce County, and this airstrip, Titan, is just 20 minutes away. When going to grass strips and backcountry strips, there is more of the unknown, so you just have to make sure that you have enough room to take off again, especially when density altitude is involved in the equation. Grass has more rolling resistance than pavement, and mud even more. Here again we are in Moravia, the muddy airstrip. You will see the technique. I try to land as soft and as smooth as possible, but once the nose gear touches the soft ground, it starts to sink right away. I pull on the elevator all the way back, but the small tire went to sink in the mud. I came later with bigger tires and it made a big difference. If you have small tires, just stick to very smooth surfaces. Be aware of the weight and balance. So always be aware of wet grass strips. Be careful. It can be muddy. The braking action is reduced. It can also be icy and slippery. I already experienced that one too. Prepare the airplane, prepare yourself, and enjoy. Thank you for watching. If you want to support Backcountry 182, please join me on Patreon. Go to the YouTube channel. On the right hand side there is the link, and then it takes you to the Patreon page. Here you can see all the tiers and what is all about the support for Backcountry 182 YouTube channel. Also, another way to access the Patreon link is in the description of the video I put in YouTube. On Backcountry 182 channel there is a link for Patreon, so just click on that and it will take you to the page. Thank you for watching. It would be amazing if you guys are interested and give some support.